Welcome to the Lifeline, a production of Simply BJE. The goal of this podcast is to build, inspire, and to empower our listeners through conversations on business, leadership, and mental health. We invite you to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and at www.simplybje.com/The Lifeline. Now, let's tune in for today's episode. Top of the day, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Lifeline with your host, life coach, and motivational speaker, Bo Powell, and social media influencer and owner of the For Real brand, Lindsberg Petway, and yours truly, leadership coach and mental health advocate, Barry J. Elliott. You can visit us at www.simplybje.com/The Lifeline and on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and now YouTube. Today, we have a special guest, author, entrepreneur, singer, preacher, Jeremy Grimes, all the way from North Augusta, South Carolina. Jeremy, Reverend Grimes, fellas, how y'all doing today?
Good morning. Good morning.
Doing good. Saw
Doing
Kakalaki in the
well.
house.
Yes, sir.
I forgot to warn you about that one. Sorry.
Got it.
So this is really our topic today. We're going to be talking about the mental health of the caregiver, and all three of you, because I know your journey as caregivers has really been amazing to watch. And so I'm going to start with you, Jeremy. Kind of tell us about your story of becoming a caregiver, who you provide care for, and how you became a caregiver.
The journey was basically one unplanned, I would say. That a road I took to become a caregiver. So moving back home, and back in 2020, moving back home then in that year, things shifted where I was coming home for one reason, moved back for one reason, but ended up finding out another reason of why I needed to be back home. And one of the greater reasons of why I needed to be back home was the fact that my parents needed me in a way that I was unaccustomed to. And so dealing with, health challenges, mental health challenges, a lot of different things like that I was seeing within my parents, that shifted me into that fire versus the fire I was coming out of. So that presented itself to me to where I had to shift all of my focus on my parents' household versus my own. And so my journey into caregiving came through that year between 2020 and 2021, after moving back and being unemployed as well during the pandemic and coming out of the pandemic. So basically, I was full time at home with my parents and taking care of the needs of the house. And so the list was wide, extensive. Anything in the house that you can think of, I did it. When it came to the caregiving aspect. So my angle for caregiving comes from the mental health side, also even from the side of dementia and Alzheimer's as well. So one parent suffers with one, the other parent suffers with the other. And so the progression just shifted to where I started noticing changes and trends of changes. And so just had to be on alert and be present, and be able to multitask and do several things simultaneously. And so both of my parents are, blessed to still be here. And so I'm caregiving for both of them at the capacity that they need at this time.
That's major. That's major. Bo or Petway, which one of y'all? Tell your story. Wow.
Well, my story started similarly in 2020. Went to visit my mom a couple times, and I noticed that her legs were swelling up very badly, simply because she was not doing what she needed to do, which is lay in the bed at night, elevate her legs, let the water drain out. And then it became an issue where I saw her legs and they were beginning to like boil up. So I said, "Ma, we got to get take care of this." So once we took her to the hospital, they found out that it was a little more serious than we thought, and they was believing it was congested heart failure. But every time they tested the heart was strong. Come to find out, there was an infection because of the buildup of water. And I remember this so vividly. I had to take her to Henry Ford, West Bloomfield, March 17th, in the tip of the pandemic. And when I drove her to the hospital, it was like a scene out of Outbreak. So the first checkpoint, person had on the whole white hazmat suit, police officer, and you had to get clearance. So her doctor had to call her in. You couldn't just show up at the hospital. And when I drove her back to the emergency, these people came out, hazmat suits, and drop her and go. So I had to just drop her off and go. There was no phone communication for like 2 days. We didn't know what was going on. Wow. And finally got a report, told her what was going on. They were trying to get the water out of her system, get her up to some type of normal health where she could communicate, because the infection had taken over her whole body. And they were talking about amputating her leg. And that was the story. So we prayed that down. And then when she was released, I knew that this point in my life it had shifted, because I'm the youngest of four and I'm the only boy. So I got four sisters, and two which are deceased, and one is in Atlanta and one is here. And when I saw my mom in that state, I just jumped in whatever she needed, because I knew she had taken care of me. Now that ended up being selling her home, moving her up to the city where I lived, in a separate apartment, and from there going back and forth, household to household, walking in several times where she had her blood sugar had dropped, thought she was out of here. She fell, had to have a hip replacement. So it ended up coming to the point where I had to move her in with me. And once I moved her in with me, we really stepped into that once a man, twice a child phase. So caregiving is very unique, as Barry mentioned, son to mom, because there's a different type of love for a mother from a son. You want to make sure she's taken care of. But when it got to the point to the second childhood, I was really put in a position where I had to like take care of mom, clean her up, and that was hard mentally initially. But I was the only one here to do it, and asked God for pray for strength, and He was able to get me to it and through it. And just had another episode. She went in the hospital January 13th and came home last Friday, which was February 28th. And now she's back, and she's much weaker than before. So just the adjustment of life totally when you take on that caregiving perspective. I think that was one of the main things that I didn't really think about. My whole life adjusted, from my relationship with my wife, a relationship and time with my kids, my job, my business. Everything kind of had to be put not on hold, but just placed in a position where I could multitask all those things, but with her being the center. Like I left work early to come home because she wanted to get in bed and she was tired. So it's a major adjustment. I say that. And if I would do it again, I would do it again. And I don't know what the future holds, because she's 89, she'll be 90. And we had a conversation the other day, and she told me she wasn't afraid of dying. And my mother's saved, sanctified, filled, the precious gift of the Holy Ghost. She know who her Savior is. And that's a realization that we have to, the ones here caring for them, have to realize when they're ready. We have to be good with God's will. So that's kind of the phase where I am now, where she has been in a position where she's had several talks with God. I had a talk with God, and but I think she's realizing that it could be sooner than later. That's kind of where I am with my caregiving phase right now.
Wow.
Hey,
Wow.
so I'm relatively a rookie when it comes to caregiving. This was just something that I began to experience last year. I was living in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and mom started falling. A couple of times I was on the phone when she fell, and she lived at home, in the one of the houses I was raised in. And so when my lease ended, um, I came down to visit a couple of times, check on her. One time I was here, woke up early in the morning, in the midst of the birds chirping and all the strange noises. I hear something strange in the background, and come to find out it was my mom yelling my name. And we're opposite ends of the house, so I'll go in. She's on the bathroom floor, and she'd been sitting. I don't know how long she'd been sitting there, but she fell, couldn't get up. And so when my lease ended, I came home to see what we can do to step in. Being an entrepreneur, you really don't have the flexibility, but you do have the flexibility. You know, um, um, business, business person. Those challenges come when you can't dedicate the focus to your business. But I had the availability to do it, so it's mom. So you got to do what you got to do. But I literally spent probably almost every day in the hospital for probably about 2 or 3 months, just running all the tests, making sure she was okay. She did have lymphedema, swollen legs, so we had to get that down, elevated blood sugar. And so we got that down, and came to a point in time, like after Thanksgiving last year, she couldn't even walk for some reason. Did all the testing, no blood clots or anything like that. You know, thought she had a stroke. But just over time, just through prayer and all that, um, she's gotten much better, but still, not as strong as we'd like her to be. And a lot of that has to do with what Lindbergh was speaking of. You really have to yield to their will of what they want. We tend to want more and even maybe even see more. But from their perspective, she's like, look, I'm doing the best I can. And I think the major challenge for her is she had gotten into an accident some time ago, and it wasn't addressed properly. So she has a pinched nerve in her neck, so she can't get a full signal to her right side, so she can't have full strength. Um, so that hinders her significantly to be able to lift, push, pull, grasp, just those type of things. But I have to admire her, man. She's, just watching her day in and day out, as emotionally and physically and mentally draining. It's been just a joy just to see her strength through it all, just still trying to press through. And after the new year, things got a lot better after a lot of physical therapy and occupational therapy. So, just by the grace of God, we're still here taking care of her, but the load is lifted a little bit. But she's still, I have to take care of her, man. I got to feed her and make sure she eats and all that stuff. But it's definitely something that I was not expecting. Like Grimes said, it's kind of like just perfect timing, man. Just the way my journey has went, and just how it unfolded. I was here to take care of mom. So that's just maybe the shortened version of, my caregiving journey so far.
So, Bo, I'm gonna start with you. We're gonna work our way back around. Tell me, how has caregiving impacted you mentally, and do you have any support, or what kind of support system do you have?
Yeah, man, for me, it was especially because it got pretty sketchy there for a minute. I was really worried if she was going to make it. Um, so, especially like Lynnsbury having to really take care of mom, that was something I was like, whoa, um, that was tough. But for a while there, because of not being able to just having to be here all the time and not being able to really get out and networking like I normally do business wise, there was a lot of stress coming from that external stress from the business, trying to make sure that survived. And but then just the emotional toll of having to be sensitive to, when she sleep, she needed something or something like that. So it was physically draining, emotionally draining. So much to the point to where we got into a rehab. It took me almost a week before I could have a full night's sleep. I was still on high alert mode. I mean, almost a week, and I was like, man, why can I not sleep? I've been waiting for this time, but I couldn't sleep. It's like I'd go to bed. It was like I was scared to go to sleep. you know, I know I was tired, but it was like, "Nah, I can't go to sleep." My body's like, you can't go to sleep because you got to hear. And then when I went to sleep, maybe a couple of hours and I was back up. So it was mentally, physically, emotionally draining. Um, and so thankfully, one of my sisters live here. Another one doesn't live too far away in Austin. So, eventually they were able to start coming in, providing some support, which I'm thankful for them. My daughter's here. She's been able to do a little bit to help as well. Um, but just having to be here day to day, there's a lot of things that have to happen to make sure things work for her. Like if like Lindbergh was saying, your life adjusts. Like I had to go out of town yesterday, and I had to make sure before I left, you had something to eat. Stuff was already pre-made, and all this stuff had to be put together before I can leave. And then, but again, thankfully my sister is here, so after a while she can come in and fill that gap. So that has been a major support. But it's, anybody who's caregiving will often tell you, once you kind of step up, it's easier for people to take a step back.
Mhm.
And I don't say that, if my sisters are listening to disparage them or any kind of way, but it's just kind of like, oh, somebody else got it, just psychologically kind of pull back.
Yeah,
You have that one person step up. But after a while, once we saw how serious it was, then that support, um, um, it leveled up. And so we've got a great system going on to make sure
good.
mom's okay.
That's good.
Mhm.
Mr. Grimes?
Yes, sir. My mind is racing while y'all are talking, and I'm trying to slow it down to see which parts of my life I need to pull out for this broadcast. Um, Life comes at you fast, it comes at you hard. Things come in waves. And so throughout this journey, just seeing the changes in them, and because every case by case is different. There's no black and white in this. Um, there's a lot of gray area until you find your way, and you have to literally find your way. Every day is different. In my world, every day is different. Um, you could get a phone call to say, "Hey, how you doing?" Or you could get a phone call and it's a full-blown emergency. So you never know what's on the other end of hello. You never know what's on the other end of a phone call, of a text message. And so I've had to adjust to the place of, you're not living for the week, you're not living for the month, you're living for the hour, you're living for the day, to get through that day. And one of the impacts of caregiving, um, that I noticed within me was, it really created a survival mode mentality. And when you're in survival mode, it's hard to have futuristic vision. And so it's hard to see ahead when all you see is smoke, when all you're fighting fires for the day. And so, um, mental health, I believe, impacts, and the spiritual impact is your ability to see. and spirit, your ability to see ahead of you, because so much of your life is meeting the current need for right now, the right now demand. Um, and so there are a lot of details I could provide, but for the sake of the broadcast, I will keep it brief in general. But the support system aspect of caregiving, it varies. Just to be quite honest with you, I'm one of two siblings. I'm the youngest of two siblings, and so geographically, I'm the one that is here. And so by default, a lot falls on me because I'm here. And and what Bo said really resonated because honestly, for me, I'm wired a little different. So I can hear internal conversations if it's never said to me sometimes. And so what I heard in the wind was that, Jeremy's there, everything is okay. Thank God Jeremy's there. I don't know if you wouldn't have been, I don't know what have happened. But that is not a replacement for presence. That does not substitute being here. And so, I value the appreciation and the acknowledgement of, me being here, but it's never a substitute. Because it does force you into a mode of operation that you're not prepared for. And so just going through the mental health challenges of this, I cannot even really begin to unpack the impact of all of that. There's layers of trauma, and there are things that I cannot unsee. There are moments that will never leave my psyche, that I've had to endure, and things I've had to adjust, go through. You know, yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot when it comes to the mental impact, and so um, you have to find your way and what works for you. And so every day is different. So every path, everything you create, it may have worked yesterday, it may not work today. So there is a force fitting of flexibility that has to emerge, that has to come, and a mental expansion to at least um, be able to handle the need of today, even if I'm dealing with the same thing on a different day. And so I've had to adjust. And if I didn't know it before 2020, I do have a greater found appreciation when Scripture tells us that my grace is sufficient for us,
Wow.
because I've had to learn that the sufficiency of grace is also the ability for Him to carry us.
Yeah.
There are moments and seasons of our lives where we're not holding on, we're being held. And when you're caregiving, God is holding on to you as you are holding on to them and holding them up. And so I found myself thinking one day, it's like, I came home needing a foundation and I had to become the thing I needed. I had to become the foundation for my foundation. And so, we look at our parents as our foundation, and we look at them as the glue, we look at them as the hub, we look at them as home, we look at them as what I build my life on. And so what do you do? How do you adjust? How do you shift when the foundation you need to stand on, you now see cracks, you now see defects? And so it's a weird dynamic in God, but he graces you to become that thing that you needed for yourself, to provide outside of yourself for someone else. And so caregiving forces you to see beyond yourself. And so because of the great list of needs and things that I had going on personally, all of that had to go on the shelf. All of me had to go on the shelf because of the need that needed to be met. And I think caregivers help extend life and will in the people that they're caregiving for. Because truth be told, a lot of people would be gone a lot sooner, I believe personally, if they did not have that person in place to help motivate, encourage, keep them going, and and to elevate the will to even want to live. And so that's what I found myself in. So with the family dynamic I have, only being one of two siblings, of course, the support system is very small. It's very small. Spectators are large, but the support system is small. And so when you're caregiving for two ministers, two community leaders, um, with my specific form of caregiving, a lot of it came with protection. So I had to develop a dogmatic mentality. I had to become a pit bull because when you're dealing with sensitive information and sensitive issues as this that I've had to deal with personally, half the battle was concealing in a way what they was dealing with so that vultures would not come and prey on the vulnerability of something that is very sacred and private. And so when you're dealing with mental health and you're dealing with memory issues and stuff like that, you become somebody else when you have to. And so, that was a great part of it too. And so honestly, not to sound, hyper holy or anything, but I'm a realist. I deal in reality. I have my faith is intact, but I deal in the realm of reality. And honestly, God is my support system. He holds me together. Because a lot of times if Jeremy don't get out of bed, it does not get done. So it shifted me into that mentality. Jeremy, you got to do it. You have to do it. And so, thank God I did have another cousin that would assist when she could, but a lot of times it just falls on that one.
Wow. Wow. LP2, talk to us.
Jeremy hit a couple of great points, but the verse, 2 Corinthians 12, my grace is sufficient for you and my power is made perfect in weakness. Like he said, when you see the foundation or that the strongest person in your life become one of the weakest people that you have seen and have to take care of, mentally it could be a blow because all my life, my father died when I was 2. My mom raised 4 girls and 1 boy. We all went to college. She never remarried. She provided. She had a great career in the church, saved. So she was, I got in trouble. I said, call the police. Don't call my mom. She was that rock. You know what I'm saying? And to see her like this, and I don't want to get emotional, but it can be almost a realistic portion that this portion of her life is about to end and that you can really be here without her. And as far as the mental capacity, I lost my sister during this time. I actually watched her take her last breath. So dealing with that, because she had a triple brain aneurysm, raising sons. I mean, my plate has so many different pieces of, not size. I just got big pieces of meat. Trying to run a business. God, I have had so many conversations with God, and my support comes really from Him because people don't really know what you're going through. Like Jeremy said, you have spectators, you have people wishing you well, the complimentary, do you need anything? But when you have to physically go in and do it, it's just me, just you. And I've taken that same coat, like Joseph, wear your coat. This is something that I have to do. My mom had a conversation with me in the spirit yesterday, and she began to speak in tongues, and she began to tell me that a part of my growth is to take care of her. She said, "You're going to be blessed for taking care of me." She said, "I know it's challenging, but a part of your growth and what God has for you," she said, "I've seen it. It's everything you want." But she said, "You got to take care of me." So as JT said, if you don't do it, it don't get done. So, you know, sisters, they don't do anything. Just recently, they stepped up because of the fact that it might be it. It became more real. Conversation with my sister in Atlanta, having been home since 19. You know, do you think I need to come home? What do you think? You know, and she might hear this podcast, and it is what it is. I keep it for real. But you know, different families, different dynamics. But if I don't do it, it don't get done. It's to the point now my mom doesn't even want my wife to put her to bed. She only wants me. So I have to, physically be in place in town to make sure that's happening. Um, so, mentally it is a challenge, but my grace is sufficient. And each day I just trust God. Even this morning was a little rough. It was rough this morning. Really didn't feel like this podcast. Head was hurting. But God, for real.
Wow. So thank each of you for your sacrifice. If nobody else tells you thank you, thank you for showing up. Because I don't think I've been saying this for a few years. It's already challenging to be a black man, right? But then to show up for other people and to show up in the way that you have, that takes another level of fortitude. So thank you for showing up. Um, I'm gonna end here, and then I'm start with P, start with you, then Jeremy, then Bo. This will be the last question. How do you provide care, in brief? How do you provide care without killing yourself?
Mm, God is my source. And each morning I get up about 4 o'clock and I thank him for another day, another opportunity. And I pray for strength. I pray that I walk in my purpose and in my destiny that he has for me. And within that prayer for purpose and destiny, you got to understand you're going to go through a process. And some of the process features might be something as caregiving. It might be a victory at your son's game. It might be a great deal. It might be a bunch of different things, but it's all part of it. So I understand that this is part of it. Um, I've never been to the point where I've thought about, killing myself or ending it all. Just the fact of the God, I need you. And once you believe God, then you trust God, then you know that God is going to do what he's going to do because he's done it before. So that's what I stand on. Believe, trust, and know.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry I had to write those 3 words down. Believe, trust, and know. I really, honestly, truly don't have a clear, concise answer for this question. How do you provide care without killing yourself? Yeah, I don't know if I could have put it any better than what we've just heard, honestly. Um, but this level of care has exposed some internal hard wiring that I need to rewire. It exposed the need to be needed. It exposed um, the fact that, I have tendencies to put others ahead of myself. I have tendencies to neglect me. I have tendencies to not pay attention to what I need. I had a conversation with my dad riding one day, and I think my heart leaped out of my mouth before I could snatch it back because I'm a strong thinker, so I cannot release everything I'm thinking. And so, I told Dad one day, I was like, every time I tell somebody yes, I'm telling Jeremy no. Every time I'm showing up after moving mountains, after reworking schedules, after canceling this and shifting this and moving this aside and making this happen. Because showing up, there is an internal process that happens before you even say yes. There is an internal process that happens within inside of each of us even before we show up. Sometimes showing up is a battle because of everything we're fighting just to be present. And you have to be present not only physically, but you're having to be present spiritually and mentally. And sometimes it's a lot to bring all of you into subjection, to be present just to meet a need. And so the impact is great. I really don't have a formula. I don't have a clear, concise answer. I'm learning through this. And so that is my answer is because of 38 years of being hardwired a certain way and learned patterns and learned behaviors and culturized into operating a certain way, I'm literally in the stage of my life where I'm having to learn how to say yes to me. And it's a great and hard lesson. It was a great awakening, but a hard lesson. And so I'm having to learn how to say yes without feeling guilty. And I feel a need to say that because a lot of times we feel or can feel guilty for doing things for ourselves, taking breaks, not answering the phone, do not disturb, whatever the case may be. You fight the feelings of guilt when you need to self-care. And so I'm learning how to self-care, but it's a slow process because of my nature. When you are a giver, you are a male, you're loyal to a fault, you're a servant by heart. It's easy to be pulled on and it's easy to be pulled in. And you can be pulled into stuff by compassion, even if that's not your assignment. And so I'm learning to how to differentiate between assignment, purpose, or is this just Jeremy wanting to be a fixer? And so I am a fixer. Like I learned it about me. Like I'm a person that I want to find a solution. I see this need. Okay, I can rework this. And my mind goes immediately into finding solutions and seeing how we can make this happen. And so it's a lot of times fighting your own nature. You're fighting yourself to fight for yourself. And so I'm learning. I'm in the process. I'm sorry to say it again, I don't have a clear, concise answer, but I'm in that learning stage. So I will admonish anybody listening, learn your patterns, track your own mental patterns, track your own emotional patterns to see how you're wired so that you can find a way to navigate around your deficiencies so that you don't become a slave to loyalty and die a slave mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. It's not always about physical death, but You don't want your purpose to die because you have consumed yourself in another person.
It's good and rich. It's a lot. I mean, I resonate with a lot of what you said, JT, and you, Lindsberg. Obviously, we have um, some relevant experiences, even though our situations are different. And for me, um, last year was really just, I'll just say, a process of one of the things God had told me last year. He says, "I'm moving you from faith to trust." And so I'm learning how to trust God through all of this, and that He's going to provide, which He has. He's going to bless, He has. Um, and what you're talking about, JT, man, I'm that guy. Empath. Want to help fix stuff. Um, yeah, I have had a tendency all my life to put others before myself. So that process has been something that I've been working on and working through as well. But you know, um, I've had to learn how to be more um, intentional with my energy and my time. Um, it's taught me how to create better boundaries. Um, it's taught me how to love myself better because I haven't done a good job of that throughout the years. So I've learned that, and I'm learning that through this is how to, take care of Bo while I'm taking care of Mom. And something that you said earlier about being able to extend the life of someone, and I can see and sense that in my mom. You know, me being here has just me being here. We don't have to talk a lot. We don't have to say a lot to each other. Just me being here has been a life giver to her. But through it all, you know, I've learned to see just the immense love that God has for me, and just the magnitude of His faithfulness in my life. And so that has kept me. Um, and seeing my mom get better has also been hope, and it's helped me to. And I'll end with this, to even repair some of the things um, that were lingering from my childhood with her. Um, that I didn't know that was there. And so it's caused me to find some healing in all this too. So, God's faithful, man. He's sovereign, and He was not caught off guard, or off guard in this. And I can see that it was part of His plan. So that in itself has helped me to find strength um, through all of this, and just to see His hand and how He's been able to move through it all has just been awesome with that. So it's made me better. I'll say that, and it's making me better. Um, and it's restoring some things, or I should say, it's placing some things in the relationship between me and my mom that needed to be there that wasn't. And so it's been great for both of us. So I'll end with that. Just
I
for
want
the
to say
second
before you
time.
close, Bo, thank you for all of you, thank you for your transparency, because I know for men, one of the hardest things for men to be is vulnerable. So thank you guys for your transparency.
Yeah, man. It's my pleasure, man. So, before we close out, JT, we always like to, give our guests an opportunity to let people know, how they can connect with you, um, you know, social media, if you have a website, anything that you may have that may be a blessing to listeners. If you have a product or anything like that, feel free to share with our listeners and how they can connect with you online.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that opportunity. I'm building and growing. I'm not have arrived yet. There are some things in the works.
Sure.
But yes, I do have a Facebook page. So if you're in the barbering world, you can follow me, JT Cuts. On social media, Facebook, Instagram, JT Grimes Ministries, Facebook as well. As far as the singing group goes, Vision. Our name is Vision Singing Ministries, but we're Vision on Facebook. and on Instagram. And I was blessed to release a book entitled Emancipated from Yesterday. And so, crazy enough, throughout all of this madness, in 2022, I was fortunate enough to release my first book. And so the second one is incubating and ready to be released. So y'all pray for me so I can get this baby out of me. And that book can be found on Amazon, or you can contact me directly. It's Jeremy T. Grimes on Facebook. You can message me there, and then we can definitely connect further from there to see where we need to go. But that is pretty much the best way to reach me. And then from there, numbers can be given out, of course, as we screen. Amen. It's 2025. Got to screen the people. But definitely willing to connect, definitely willing to grow, and I'm very intentional about relationships. So I only want people that are there for a reason and a purpose, and so that's my mode of connection, and that's my motive behind connecting. So that is how you can reach me, and I appreciate that chance to be able to give that information.
Give us the title of that book one more time. The one that
It's
you
called
released.
Yes, sir. It's called Emancipated from Yesterday.
Emancipated from Yesterday. There you
Yes,
go.
sir.
Come on now. And
Yeah,
Emancipated from Yesterday.
There we go.
We
Yes,
got
sir.
it. And they can get that from Amazon, or they can contact you directly.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, to our listeners, man, this concludes another episode of The Lifeline with your host, BJE, Lindsberg Petway, and Bo Powell. Now, don't forget to check us out on www.simplybje.com/The Lifeline and on social media. Look, we're on a mission. We want to bring light and life into your household, so join us. And let us hear your feedback, because it's all about bringing life to you on The Lifeline. Y'all take care and God bless.
Thank you for listening to today's episode with host, business expert, and life coach Bo Powell, social media influencer and entrepreneur Lindsberg Petway, and leadership coach and mental health advocate Barry J. Elliott. Join us next week for another impactful conversation on The Lifeline. God bless.